Hey guys, TommyBryson here, and believe it or not, for the first 19 years of my life, I'd only read one book, and for everyone that's nosy and interested, that one book was basically The Giver. It was the only book I read that I actually wanted to read without being forced to actually go ahead and read it, okay? However though, okay, 4 to 5 years later, so far at this age, I've read well over 200 books. And I have a confession, okay? It is not as cool as you probably think it is. In reality, one lesson that I've learned is basically that sometimes it is better to read, for example, 5 or 10 books over and over again than to just read, for example, 200 different books, different people, and kind of get your head a little bit mixed up or whatever, okay? And by the way, every book, honestly, just has, for example, 1 or 2 very valuable lessons, but everything else is just mush. But you still have to read the mush so it can actually stick to your mind and everything else. So that's why you gotta read a book. It's not just about, hey, this is what it says, that's it, I'm done here. No, it doesn't actually seal in your brain if you actually don't do that. So for this book, guys, again, after 4 to 5 years of reading well over 200 books, I'm gonna give you the 1% of those books that actually made a difference in my life. The top 5 books that I recommend you don't read, for example, once or twice, but I recommend, for example, you read every single month. Tommy, that's insane, I can't do it. The answer is, if you're not a good reader, use Audible. That's what I use. Link down below. When you download Audible, you get 2 free books. And I use Audible when I'm driving, when I'm at the gym, when I'm doing anything that's idle. Instead of listening to music, I just basically put on Audible and read a book. And that's how I'm able to read so much as often as I actually do, because basically I'm always listening. Sometimes though, as you can see back here, I do take a break from listening and I actually do sit down and actually read the book. And by the way, the only way to get better at reading books and allowing it to get captured is by doing it over and over and over again. It is a skill that you own by doing it over and over again. Now, let's get started, guys, here. If you guys are new here, I make videos Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Make sure to also go ahead and basically subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notified. On top of that, also destroy the like button, but most importantly, comment down below exactly what is your favorite book of all time. It doesn't matter if it's fiction or, for example, based on fact or whatever. Comment down below, let me know. I want to know exactly what it is, and that way I can read it also and steal some ideas from you, okay? Now, the very first book, guys, that I read that changed my mind forever and saved my financial life forever, basically, is called The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. And by the way, this book was written, well, like in the 1900s, right? That was the whole idea, like 1940s, 1950s. It was a very long time ago. And in reality, this book, my friends, is actually fiction. However, it is very real concepts that help you, for example, in the real world. And it was made basically because George, the author, would set up, for example, these parables, all these stories. Then bankers and insurance people used to basically distribute them across to other people. And before you know it, they became very popular. And before you know it, he made a whole book about it. Now, what does this book teach you? Well, here's what it taught me. It taught me that basically, if I work for money, and at the end of the month or at the end of payday, I have no money left over, it means that I am money's slave. I just work for money and that is it. However, this book talks about basically how do you free yourself from being a slave for money and making money your slave and having money work for you and earn more money and more money and more money. And the top 3 things you want to look for when it comes to reading this book right here, basically, the rules or, for example, the laws of gold. On top of that, the 7 cures for a lean purse. Also, the stories about, for example, the person that was in debt and then left. And on top of that, also the story about how hard work is so important to all of us, okay? Now, this book, guys, for a fact, okay, I've read it over 10 to 20 times. And every time I read it, I get something different. And that's why I say sometimes it's better to read one good book 200 times than basically going ahead and reading 200 different books. I highly recommend this book. If you're interested, again, everything is down below. By the way, here is a picture of the author. I'm gonna do that because basically I wanna put a picture to the people that created these amazing works that help millions of people. By the way, well over 1 million copies actually sold. Now, number 2, guys, is the book called You Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Now, right off the bat, here is a picture of David Goggins, not for example, like his fit self, but also for example, his obese self. Because by the way, this author went through hell and came back. And by the way, it's the book I relate the most to as far as, for example, my childhood and everything I went through. But again, that is another video for another day. But this book, guys, has no fiction whatsoever. It is a real life story about a man that thrives to recreate himself and become the best version of himself. And one thing that I've learned from this book is basically success is a choice. If you want to be the best version of yourself, you have to compete versus yourself and improve yourself as most as possible. Now, one thing is this, okay? This book was written, for example, by obviously an author, sold over 1 million copies, ex-Navy SEAL, athlete, has ran over 100 miles, holds, for example, the pull-up record. The guy is amazing, but in reality, that's not the full story. The guy had a learning disability, used to get abused by his father, which also beat his mom, also was an extreme liar, had identity problems, was also really obese. And then from all those things right there, not the most popular things ever. And by the way, his stepdad also died, right? So many things happened to David Goggins. However, though, he still took those things and made a choice to basically become the best version of himself. And that's what today you say, well, David Goggins has, for example, over 1 million followers, ex-Navy SEAL, success here, but every day is just a choice for him. Whether he wants to do it or not to do it, he still does what it takes. And by the way, the best teachers ever are the ones that basically go through hell and come back and tell you exactly how to avoid all those things and show you exactly what it takes, okay? David Goggins is a man that leads by example, not by fiction or by theories. Everything he talks about, he's gone through it himself, which made him a better version of himself. One of my favorite authors by far. And by the way, I've spoken to David Goggins once because I went, for example, on a run basically during a whole snowstorm, and his response was basically, Tommy, stay hard, okay? And that's all I needed. Great guy, David Goggins. This book for sure changed my life, and it will also for you. It'll show you that basically there is no excuse. You can be who you want to be, but you got to choose to do what you got to do to be that person. Now, number 3, guys, is Unf Yourself by Gary Bishop. Now, this book right here changed my life also. Here's why. Because a lot of us, we work a job that we don't like, live a life that basically we might not like that much, but the one thing is basically that you say, hey, only if I had the chance to do this, or I want to do that, right? And in reality, Gary calls BS on all of it. He tells you basically the reason you are not who you want to be in this world is because you are not willing to. And he does not do it, for example, in a nice way. He does it in a very real way. So if you do not like, for example, harsh language, to be corrected, to be reprimanded, to be told the truth, and all these things, okay, just honest, to the point, then this book is not for you. But in reality, it is the book you need to read because it will change your outlook on life and show you exactly what you need to do. One thing I've learned is this, okay, guys? Whatever you say you want to do, find out what it's going to take. And then ask yourself, hey, am I willing to do that or am I not willing to do that? Oh, I want a Bugatti, whatever the Bugatti name is, okay? The new one that costs like $3 million. I want that Bugatti. What is it going to take? 16-hour days for the next 10 years. Are you willing to do that? If the answer is no, then just stop and be happy with your Honda and live a happy life and work towards those things, okay? This book is so real, guys, that it changes you forever. My favorite, well, top 3 for sure. This book right here is amazing. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Shout out to Gary Bishop. What a great book. And by the way, it offers so many lessons on how to take action, okay? How to take action. Now, number 4, guys, is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And by the way, When Tim Ferriss wrote this book, he was not a millionaire, but today his net worth, according to Google, is well over $100 million. But this book right here, guys, is all about basically, what it sounds like. A 4-hour work week. How do you possibly get that? Is that possible? Is it not possible? The answer is, by the end of this book, you will find out that it actually is possible. And the whole thing throughout this book is to show you that basically, sometimes less is more. You have to be willing to negotiate. It shows you exactly how to build an online business, how to negotiate your salary. On top of that, also, how to negotiate from going to the office to just working from home and free up a bunch of time to do exactly what you want to do. And it basically, by the way, Tim Ferriss is the guy that made, for example, laptop lifestyle a thing. The guy that made, for example, entrepreneurship, in a sense, also very cool. He changed a lot of lives when he made this book. And by the way, everyone thought that this book was going to flop. But by far, for example, the most memorable and impactful story in this book is basically, and the whole story, guys, was basically, you had this fisherman and this business guy, but I won't even say it, okay? I'm not gonna spoil it for you guys. You gotta read this book. That story is gonna change your perspective on basically less, a lot of the times, is actually more. That story changed my life forever, man. Again, it's a story about the fisherman and the Harvard business graduate, okay? If you wanna look it up, you look it up on Google, but I recommend you read this book to get the full story and also its full context. Now, number 5, guys, and the final book here is going to be It Takes What It Takes by Trevor Mowat. And by the way, I just read this book last week, and it's already on my top 5 list of books you want to read every single month. How is that possible? It might be, for example, recency bias or whatever, but in reality, I do think this is an amazing book. It teaches you about something called neutral thinking. That basically shows you that basically, hey, whatever happened in the past, well, it's not going to change, so just focus on what you can do right now. On top of that, it's basically telling you, hey, here's what an athlete does to be successful, and here's what you can take from that to be successful in your own life. It also tells you that basically success is not a choice. And that sounds very crazy, right? But if you want to be successful, it takes what it takes, and it's not going to change. If you want to do whatever you want to do at the highest level, there are sacrifices you need to make in order to actually do it. And he tells you, hey, you have no choice. You either do it or you're not going to be it. And that's the whole perspective here. This book right here, by the way, is an amazing book. But overall, guys, if you guys notice, okay, all these authors have, for example, they're fit. They have, for example, financial freedom in a sense. They have money, all that stuff. But none of them, in a sense, started that way. They all went through some hardship and then basically developed basically what they have now. But none of them were basically, hey, I was born with a lot of money. No, they all work hard, which basically means whatever they have, you can also have. And that's why I recommend these books so much. Now, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, I'm going to give you a bonus. The bonus is called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. That book will also transform the way you think, which is a great book, but it is a bonus, so I put it all the way to the end of the video. If you made it all the way, comment down below, let me know, Tommy, I made it all the way, and I also know exactly what the bonus book actually is. Comment down below, let me know. As always, guys, remember, will you read these books for the rest of your life every month? The answer is no. But I want you to make these books a part of your life and get the whole concept being a part of you. And then you can go basically ahead and say, hey, I'm going to read this book and then that book and then this book. But these right here are the concrete books that you're basically going to need the most, or the ones that impacted me the most. And I also think they'll also impact you the most. Again, link down below to Audible. Get 2 free books when you sign up. I'll see you guys tomorrow. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified. If you guys want to call me and talk to me one-on-one, well, join me on my 3rd channel called TommyBryson, where I take calls from Monday to Friday. The link is down below. Schedule a call today. On top of that, also, if you want to DM me on Instagram, DM me right here on Instagram at TommyBryson. On top of that, here is more content right here. Click my face right here. And as always, peace.